Hi, folks. My name is Girish Bali, the host for Back to Basics. We are kind of live. I hope we're live. And we're going to talk to a bunch of people, I hope. We're going to talk about a bunch of things, I hope. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're talking about mental health, and we have a guest coming up shortly. So let's talk and chit chat for 10 minutes if you don't mind. Mental health is one thing that we just never talk about enough. And it's kind of shame because it seems like it's like a taboo topic for a lot of different people. They think that it's a very sensitive topic. Yes, it is. But why is a taboo personal topic? I mean, it should be talked about, right? So this guest that I have here today, we are going to be talking about mental health, and she's, according to me, she's the queen of mental health when it comes to her bubble that she's in right now, and her name is Tiffany. And Tiffany, I will invite you and invite you. And here you are, Tiffany. How are you? And thanks for coming to Back to Basics.
Hi, thanks, Girish, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we get into the mental health and all the talks and what you do and what you don't do, what does Back to Basic mean to you?
Well, when I think about it, it's that what we go through in life, and we all have our story, but it's how we react to it that defines our character.
Hmm.
And in order for us to reach our full potential in life and live our dreams and follow our dreams, we have to get back to the basics and then grow from that. And in my opinion, I think we all have the ability to, and we can all reach full potential in life if we bet on ourselves, we challenge ourselves, and we the word can't. That's how I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you again, Tiffany. And thanks for being here and thanks for supporting me on my podcast here. But let me ask you this. Mental health, why is it a taboo topic? As I just said earlier, why is it like a something personal? I mean, we should be talking about these things and we should help each other out when it comes to mental health, right? What are your thoughts on that, please, if you don't mind?
Well, so I started this radio show like 7 years ago. I've been a therapist for licensed therapist at least pretty much. Well, I've done nothing else besides that, but for 15 to 20 years, I'll just put it that way. And a lot of people, I'm really big on ending the stigma on mental health because a lot of people feel that there's a stigma against going to see a therapist or to take medication for something. And even 7 years ago, when I was doing the radio show, Ending the Stigma on Mental Health, the Moments of Clarity, the Tiffany show, um, it was hard to get guests on the show because they didn't want to tell their business and they didn't want to um, embarrass themselves. Even like when looking for a job, and you go into a job interview and you get the job, the human resources person will say, and we offer 401k benefits and dental and vision. And they don't mention mental health. And it's like,
Mm,
well, you can bring up my dental. What is something wrong with my teeth? But you're afraid to say that we have mental health benefits too.
mm,
Then most employers, would benefit from having mental health days for people because people call out sick a lot because they're going through something.
mm,
But I think it started back in the day because people in the past had talked about asylums or lobotomy or whatever, or the mentally insane, and then movies and media like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and things kind of portrayed mental health as being clinically insane or clinically mentally ill.
mm,
But and those things do exist, but I think a lot of people misunderstand those diagnoses as well, even to this day.
mm,
Mental health has come a long way. You see it in the NFL and the Olympics, people
mm.
standing up and saying that there's mental health issues that they're enduring, and not, Lady Gaga, Demi Lovato. People are speaking on their mental health because it's real, but it's just now starting to come out. I think I saw a movement more so since the pandemic because a lot
Mhm.
of people were experiencing depression, anxiety, job
That's
loss,
that's true.
marital things, and um, and then reaching out for help and knowing that it's okay to not be okay. And the more we talk about it, the more it's understood that that. you're not alone. That there's everyone has something. Everyone goes through something. Even there's a diagnosis, a phase of life problem, or an adjustment disorder, which isn't really a disorder. And sometimes the words are is what kind of scares people away. But like just moving from one job to another, or losing a job, or having to adjust to something after a divorce, and feeling symptoms of depression, or symptoms of anxiety, or symptoms of identity crisis, or losing a sense of self. It doesn't mean that.
But Tiffany, you brought up a great point that in the benefits, the health benefits that we have, right? And we
Mhm.
have dental, we just don't have mental, mental benefits in there. But it looks
They
like,
exist. They just don't tell them about it.
yeah. So here's a point that I'm going to be making. So 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I was talking to this teacher, and she was informed by the health, pharmaceuticals. They're like, you're allowed to have at least one massage per month according to the health benefit. And she's like, wow, I should take that benefit, and I should take that, right? And I'm like, okay, well, that's a sign of mental, that's a sign of tiredness of the body, right? So, do you think that's something new, or is just the health companies are just not advertising it because it's just too much money? What are your thoughts on that?
Um, I think there's a lot of companies, because I'm a provider as a licensed therapist, and I have a private practice and a counseling center as well. And a lot of companies do have what is called the EAP services, and it's an employee assistance program services. Most health insurances cover mental health sessions as well.
Hmm.
Um, it's just not as wide known that there's a lot of
But it's
specialized and talented therapists that can help you out, and the company will cover it. Um, I just think that a lot of people are worried that if they go to their employer and say, "I need some mental health EAP, employee assistance sessions, or whatever, can I get the authorization?" that they might be looked at different, like, as a depressed or anxious employee, where they can just it's discriminatory. It doesn't make you less of an employee. In fact, when you want someone healthier in their mental state, then and work harder and actually meet higher numbers and become more of um, a top employee than someone that's struggling and losing their cognitive functioning, or their mind's not there because they're thinking of something else, or they're worried about something personal. And that's just one thing. And then also it's I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something else about that, but
but that's okay. We'll come back to that. So, Tiffany, let me ask you this, right? If we go to the psychiatrist, and ask for help, okay, people around you, meaning family members or friends or even colleagues, they think that's a sign of weakness. Mental health, I've been told in many different platforms and forums and whatever, that it's a sign of weakness. Do you think it's a sign of weakness, or is this cry for help? What are your thoughts on that?
neither. Um, so I think that for us to be fully stable, like, within ourselves, it's mind, body, spirit. So if we broke our arm, let's say, and didn't put a cast on it, um, it might heal, but it won't ever be the same. But people are more likely to put a cast on their arm than go seek help for their mentality and to mental stability and being at their best performance, being able to think clearly and focus. And if there's intrusive thoughts, no one should have to live like that, with
Hmm.
depression and intrusive thoughts and anxiety. That, I mean, when you don't have to. And when I say intrusive thoughts, a lot of people have the what ifs. So I have, like, for my clients, I have a stick figure. I could probably find someone to take it, but anything. But say mindfulness. Okay, so it's dialectical behavioral therapy. A lot of you people are hearing the word, using mindfulness. It means staying in the present and worrying about one thing at a time. So, like, imagine a drawing, a little stick figure, and one of my clients named him Seymour, and the other one's Seymour Butts. Because, let me explain. So this Seymour guy, he's got a little thought cloud above his head, and he's like, "I can do this," and he's happy, and he's like smiling or whatever. And then the other one, Zoomer Butts, is mad with big fist, and it's the cloud says, "I can't. What if? Should I? I have fear of the unknown, fear of intimacy, fear of commitment, fear of you know all of these. Oh, and so instead of being mindful and here in the present, Seymour Butts is mindful. Like imagine the capital FULL in caps, mindful of stuff, which it's not easy for anyone to accomplish one thing at a time successfully and clearly and to their fullest potential when you're worrying about a cluster of things rather than taking one thing at a time and being in the present. And so we can be our own worst enemy if we allow that anxiety to get the best of us. Medication can help, therapy can help, and bouncing ideas off of someone that's objective, where it's confidential and everything, is definitely not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. To be able to rid yourself of that kind of stuff that is undeserved worry, undeserved shame, undeserved guilt, undeserved things that will set us back if we don't face them and get back to basics.
Yeah, yeah. So Tiffany, thank you again for that. Let me ask you this, and let me come up with an analogy if you don't mind. So, if you have a cut and then you put a bandage on, it takes 7 to 10 days to get that wound healed, and then you can just take that bandage out. This is hypothetical, okay? We're not talking like the worst ones. We're just talking simple cut. Now, mental health, is that only temporary or is that permanent and it's still going on even after when I ask for help? What are your thoughts on that?
It depends on the situation. Everyone's individualized. It depends on what kind of help someone needs.
Hmm.
There's some people that are going through things that they would need weekly help for a while,
Hmm.
and then maybe stop going because the solution of the problem got solved, and then come back later for maintenance or stressful job or anything that it just feels good to not to be able to talk to a professional that has an objective point of view, not take it personally, not worry, not um, it just feels it. About the band-aid analogy, that's a good one because you can't just bandage a problem too. We have to reopen some wounds from the past as well and then face those because sometimes the root of the problem that was never dealt with can be the cause of what we're dealing with today too. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that have been sexually abused as children or
you know, uh,
traumatized or bad
Tiffany,
childhood. Mhm.
online I actually read a line. Can I read that line to you? It's kind of weird when I read this. So, what do you think when I finish this off? It says here, people with mental illness are much more often the victims of the violence rather than a perpetrator. What are your thoughts on that?
Um, perpetrator is is like it could be a pedophile or whatever.
Right.
It could have been somebody that is just has a fetish or some weird um, obsessive compulsive disorder or whatever. Um, I don't like the word victim either. So there's sometimes not every perpetrator, or not every survivor. I like the word survivor instead of victim. Survivor of abuse, survivor of a bad childhood, survivor of a trauma. Um, the word victim, I think, will hold people back if they victimize themselves rather than say, I've survived the worst days of my life 100% of the time and I'm still here, and I'll never have to repeat that. But to be able to cope with it and heal from it, face the trauma rather than brushing it under the rug and ignoring the problem, eventually it's going to pile up. If you brush it under the rug, the mound will get big and we end up tripping over it eventually, because these problems resurface. But I don't know. I don't know that there's any good excuse for someone to be a child molester. It's my personal opinion, and I'm gonna stand by that. And anyone that thinks it's okay to be a child molester, like, uh,
Yeah, that's a different topic and different episode
well,
altogether. But I
you
totally
said
agree with
predator
you.
or perpetrator, so that
Right.
goes through my head
Well,
when
when I read that sentence, it feels like yes, you're the victim or I should say the survivor of
Mhm.
a mental health, right? But then you're the weak person, and the perpetrator is the person who's stronger than you. I mean, that's how I read it. It doesn't
That's
matter what they did. I'm just saying that that's how I defined it.
the perpetrator is like, so you could be like um, a manipulator for children, or or whatever, a narcissist, or someone that affects someone else. That whatever the victim that you sit in the line, they are survivors. They're the ones that are strength that they've endured, and I would find the perpetrator as the weak one that are preying on people.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you again, Tiffany. But let me ask you this question here: if people they don't have friends who they trust, or family members that they don't trust, okay,
That they don't
going
trust or they trust.
they do not trust. Uh, is it okay to go to the therapist and looking for help?
That's exactly when you should. I mean, and even if you have friends and family that you trust, a therapist is good to talk to, because let's say you have a loving family, but you're worried about your job. Let's say you're
Mhm.
the father and you have a family and kids, and you're stuck at your job and it's really stressing you out. Would you want to bring that home to your family and talk to your wife, and like, even though couples should communicate, but to talk about how you're really feeling so that you don't worry them, or
Mhm.
let's say feeling low and your self-esteem is taking a hit or something like that, or maybe having not really happy at in your relationship or your marriage, and trying to figure out if it's you or whatever, or couples communication, effectively communicating, so many things that therapy can help with, so that it prevents divorce, it prevents people feeling that they don't have a sense of purpose, or feeling stuck um, in their life. Nobody's ever stuck in anything. The only thing we can't wiggle out of is death.
Yeah,
Sometimes, but
I,
some people do that too. So I don't know.
yeah, I
But
totally agree with that. Thank you so much, Tiffany.
therapists aren't just like 1-800 rent a friend. It's like you can have friends, but not want to talk to them about personal issues, because a lot of friends will give you personal advice, and they will put a personal spin on it. Let's say you were talking to your good friend about your partner or whatever. They can give you bad advice. A lot of friends give bad advice because maybe they don't like them personally or whatever. A therapist is objective, where they would give just, uh, you know, help you figure that out yourself. And
Yeah.
so, but friends can give good advice too. I mean, if you're with the wrong person, but at the same time, a therapist would try to see it from your perspective, because you might like a person, but they might not.
So, Tiffany, there's a question from people who are listening right now. They're saying, "Wouldn't you take therapist indicates to your family that there is something wrong?" What are your thoughts on that part?
I think that it depends on if you're open to them about why you're going to therapy. Um, they might worry that you want a therapist, and I mean, if they don't understand what a therapist does, they might worry that there's something wrong. But you can clearly say, I'm feeling stressed out. I think I need to talk to a professional. Period. And the family, I mean, as long as they understand that you're okay, but you want to go talk to someone because you're feeling overwhelmed, and there's a lot of referrals I get from parents about their children, that they're like, I know they're going through something and they just don't want to talk to me about it. Because how many
Hmm.
teenagers really want to open up to their parents about what they're going through? That's
That's
usually,
right.
but they'll talk to a therapist. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It means that they're going through this life changing, like, puberty and emotions and all these hormones and everything, and problems at school, and that they don't want their parents like calling the principal, or I don't know, just open up to them.
Yeah, I think what we should advocate in this episode today is that we should start talking to each other as friends, as as close people, and then you can talk about pretty much anything, right? There have been people that I have seen that they don't talk and they become suicidal, or they become really depressed and they don't know what to do. There are people that they suffer even with informing their family that their sexuality differences and whatever they go through. So these, according to me, these are mental health. According to me,
Hmm.
it might be a different definition for someone else, but that's my thought process, and that's what I'm going to be sticking with. And I think Tiffany agrees with that.
I do.
So yeah. So Tiffany,
I mean,
let
that's
me ask
part
you
of
this.
it. There's a lot more, but yeah,
There's a
that
lot more. I mean, of course, there's a lot more. So Tiffany, you have a radio station, and it's called Moments of Clarity,
I have a radio
which
show that I
it's a
air
radio
out
show.
of
So
the radio
explain that to
station.
people if you don't mind. Yeah.
The radio station is Tantalk Radio, and it's aired like with 8 or 9 a.m. FM stations that it airs out, then saved on pretty much every podcast, and it's aired like with yours, LinkedIn and YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. If you look up Moments of Clarity with Tiffany, all my shows are there, and it's all about ending the stigma on mental health through the inspirational stories of exceptional guests, where I have not only doctors that give good tips and things like that, professionals, celebrities, book authors, saying that they've been through something and that it's okay to not be okay, and how mental health is affects them, but how they survived through something, that it's okay to not be okay, and that trying to end the silence, end the stigma on mental health.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, you talk so much, and I've seen your profile, and we're gonna put that in the show notes under this episode. You know, you talked about even child abuse. You talked about sexuality stuff. I mean, you've talked so much, and you've done so much. Uh, so, what is Tiffany for the next 5 more years?
I don't know, the same, but evolving, growing. I don't know. So I did write. Well, I keep bringing back the child abuse. I wrote and published a book called "There's a Light Within You That Never Goes Out," and it's nonfiction. Took me 18 months to write, about 90 pages. Only because I had a lot of clients that came into my office that needed help with that. They're adults and they never sought help before, and they were just sick of living with that undeserved shame and guilt. And when
Hmm.
I wanted to be on my A game, looked for some curriculum out there. There really wasn't much
Hmm.
that wasn't very scriptured or had a lot of religious scripture, like that kind of stuff. And I found my clients were like, I don't want to read this. I'm mad at God for letting this happen to me.
Hmm.
Anyway, we wrote a workbook, and it's a self-help book, and it's on the cover of childabuse.com.
Hmm.
So I've witnessed a lot of people get healed from going back to the basics, going back to the root. I keep throwing the back to basics.
Of course you do. Thank you so much for that. So, Tiffany, besides your book, okay, what are the three books for mental health that you recommend for people to read?
Depends what they're looking for. When the dust settled, if you're looking for a good survivor book from my friend Joe Patusi, it really, there's some great knowledge out there. From Chaos to Cured, Patrick Miller talks about bipolar, um, and and going into remission, about what it's like to live with bipolar. And there's so many that
Hmm.
that that are great. But it depends on what you're trying to uncover, or
Uncover, right?
so
Now,
different
now,
topics, everything.
and the second part is the any top three movies according to mental health that do you recommend?
It's funny
That
that
it
you say that. I
designs
don't think
the
that there's
movie.
enough out there. You know,
Okay,
um, there's not enough that are out there that really address mental health.
but why is that? Do you think? Do you
I don't
think?
know. I think people are sensitive to the matter.
Hmm. Yeah, I think maybe. I mean, there are movies like that, but I think they turned that into a psycho killer instead, right? And
It's really
not
weird.
in a good way. So
Yeah. Excuse me. My mouth got dry. But there's been so many people that said they wanted to make my book into a movie or Netflix series. I'm like, have you read it? It's real stories of people getting raped and incest survivors, and um, I mean, child abuse and adult survivors of sexual abuse and incest. Like who would want to watch that? Like,
yeah, yeah.
I
Well, I
don't
mean, One of the people who are just listening right now, he actually mentions that the movie Joker was
That would be
another
a great
great.
one. That is, yeah, I didn't think of that one, but yes, the one with Joaquin Phoenix. So
Right,
how
right.
he
So
was completely, he had a mental health illness, a mentally ill mom, found that was like betrayed, bullied, everything, and just couldn't take it anymore.
yeah, well, I mean, even Norman Bates from Psycho, right? I mean, they do say these movies that are around mental health, but I think it goes more to the serial killer versus a
Right, the
good,
Psycho movie kind
you
of
know.
not the good
So
thing.
so
It,
then that's what I'm saying. So it's becoming a taboo topic because if you talk about it, then people will say that you're a bad person, and not everyone who has mental issues is a bad person. They need help. They want to be heard. I think that's what it is.
okay, so
So,
when we say mental health, I mean there's different levels, but there's some that need medication like schizophrenia, where they have auditory and visual hallucinations. Some of them grandiose. They think they or bipolar psychosis. They think they're God or best friends with the Vatican during a manic episode, things like that. Some of the people that I've met with these things are the most brave and wonderful people I've ever met, because imagine having these manic episodes that you don't know when they're coming,
hmm,
and you get medication for them, but you want to plan to go to Thanksgiving at your sister's house, but you never know if something's going to happen, or if you're going to have a spell, or
hmm, hmm,
depression. It's they wake up every day and live with these things that are intrusive, and they still get up and shower and go to work, everything. And instead of looking down on them like they're crazy or anything, I actually commend them and think, wow, I mean, what a challenge in life to live like that. And then still, I mean, we're talking all sorts of things. Living with autism, they have to socially understand us rather than we like. So society sometimes thinks they respond weird, but
hmm.
we're the ones not being sympathetic or compassionate to how they don't get sarcasm. But
Yeah,
sometimes sarcasm can, if somebody just brutally honest all the time, it's refreshing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
So,
it depends on who you're talking to. Some people want things sugar coated all the time. I don't know, but
Tiffany, thank you for coming on the show and explaining to us about mental health. But before you leave, do you have any last words to all my viewers listening today, and definitely to all the Back to Basic, community that I have? And then, how was your journey on Back to Basics?
well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and I've been honored to meet you and get to know you, even though you hide your beautiful Indian accent. We'll get back to that, but um, and you have a wonderful platform, and I am very honored to help, and thank you for letting me speak. And that change can only come when we stand together as one. So by spreading the word like this, it's helping ending the stigma on mental health, and to rather not judge anyone, to be kind to yourself and to a stranger, because we never know what they're going through. And
That's right.
you
I
can, a smile goes a long way to pay it forward. Walking into a store or whatever, hold a door for somebody, just smile at them. Well, granted, if you don't have a mask on, but a smile. Some people said that they were going to give up on life, and someone smiled at them or said, "How are you doing?" or "Have a nice day," and it made them second guess it. So to be kind to someone. And like another thing also, when someone gives you good service at a grocery store or something, tell the manager, because most people go back and complain when there's bad service. But reward those that are doing their service the right way, and pay. Kindness goes a long way. A smile goes a long way, and just remember that you're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely, Tiffany. You know what I usually say on my show is I usually say that you kill people with kindness and you kill people with positivity. And that's the only way to eliminate or at least minimize some hatred or some negative around the world, around you, that is. Because ruling the world, it is a task because it's not only my task, it's everyone's task. But people around me, people like you and me, at least we can spread this much. Whoever's listening today and whoever's and watching us too. So Tiffany, thank you again for being here and supporting me, and we'll keep in touch. I mean, we always keep on
Yeah.
talking to each other.
Yeah.
But thank you again for coming here, and this is the first time we're meeting. But
I know, face
uh,
to face.
yeah, yeah. So stay blessed, and thank you again for coming to Back to Basics.
Thanks for having me. It's
Thank
been
you.
wonderful. And keep up the good work.
Thank you so
Spread
much.
the
God
word.
bless.
You too.
Guys, we spoke with Tiffany today and we talked about the basics of mental health. And the mental health is definitely a taboo topic, but we're trying to make it untaboo. I don't know if that's a word or not, but that's what I'm going to be using today. But guys, if people are, we have not even talked about one thing in on the show today, and we have never talked about grieving. When people they lose people, you know, you need to be there for that one person. It's okay not to say anything if you don't understand. Let's say if someone lost their moms or pops and you have not lost any of them, how do you go and react? Just be there for them. It's one step away from being a mental health, and at least you're there for support. I think that's the main thing. So, guys, as usual, as always, there's a quote of the day from Back to Basics, and hopefully Tiffany will like this. And well, this is the quote that I have: "You don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop telling them to control you." I mean, that's what mental health is all about, isn't it? So, guys, as usual, as always, what do I always say at the end of my episode? Everything in life goes back to basics, and that's what we did today, guys. Guys, take care. God bless. Keep on commenting on all my episodes because you know what? Your comment makes me stronger day by day, week by week, because I do release every day. And there are three things in every episode that it's important to me, which is content, the guest, and definitely the host, which is always the best. Guys, take care. God bless. And I will see you next time on Back to Basics Live. And stay blessed. Thank you. Uh, Tiffany, give me a second.